Hello everyone, this is Owl-Moniker and I am doing this to just introduce you to the format beforehand. I, for this, did record an intro, but I didn't like how it sounded. I was a bit too close to the mic, and I kind of still am, but just to introduce you to the format, this is a series where I do speed paints and kind of try to throw perfectionism out the window. Now, the problem with that is I've been drawing faster and faster, so small sketches are a bit less in my repertoire because I'm able to do them so quickly that I'm just like, alright, let's move on to something else. And that is, nice, but it means I have a lot more content to incorporate into speed paints, and it means I get indecisive. But for this, I did a bunch of drawings last month, as I'm about to mention in the recording, and I thought I'd save it. This is mostly done in one take, or like separate takes. There's no revising or re-recording or anything, so some sounds will be weird, I will be a bit weird, I will be rambling about certain things. I do go back in and edit things so that major mistakes are cropped out, which I will put in a bloopers reel at the end this time. But yeah, that's the format if you are unaware, and without further ado, I hope you enjoy. This month did Artfight, and I have so much footage from that because I did 18 fully shaded digital drawings, paintings, whatever you'd like to call them. Some of them had line art, some of them didn't, but if you don't know how Artfight works, these are all of people's different characters, and people have such cool designs, and it was so cool to pick out things that really worked with my style. I tried looking for things with lots of pastels, but also some mixes of, dark colors, because I like working with both of those things, as long as it's not like pure white or pure black, which, some people do. I get it. It's kind of simple to do that sort of thing, but it's really hard to shade for other artists. But it was absolutely fun to, challenge myself in that regard. Anyways, oh man, there's so much I feel like I have to catch people up on. Not too much has changed on the channel, I guess. You might hear that my voice is a bit deeper, and that's because I've been doing some voice training. I took some choir classes, because I graduated from some stuff like a few years ago now. So now I can, have a bit more free reign, and choir has really helped me, strengthen my voice. I would use a bunch of technical terms, but I realized that not all people may realize what those mean. If any of the artists who own these characters see this video, then let me just reassure you that if you do not want a character in this video, then please get in contact with me and I will take down this video and re-upload it without the footage of your character being drawn. I completely understand that maybe you want this to be more your own thing, and Artfight is kind of like its own platform. It's more private in some regards, whereas with this I'd be posting it to like, Instagram, YouTube, Tumblr, maybe other platforms, and I get if people would not want that to be entirely public. I have noticed that, people who do Artfight do publish these sorts of things to, like, their various accounts, and I think that's completely fine. I'm not, like, calling them out on it or anything. I just wanted to, give some reassurance that if that's not what you want, that you can get in contact with me, and I'm completely fine with that. Hell, it gives me, like, a reason to upload the same thing over and over again and be like, hey, get more clout, hell yeah. I've been applying for various things. It's interesting. I'm trying to move out of the current place I'm in right now, because recording here is somewhat hard. I have to record some things in, like, the dead of night because I don't want to wake people up or bother people. I know that, like, the former dead of night may not help with the waking people up, but I tried, well, like I said, I've been taking choir classes, and the thing with that is, before I tried to be very quiet with my voice. I don't know if I mentioned this, but right now I have this absolute vibe, or aesthetic, if you want to call it that, where, like, I just had some iced tea. I was just in a voice chat with a few friends as well as my partner, and we listened to some music, which, you know, some of that stuff resurfaced some memories for me, so I had to leave for a bit, which, you know, gave me an opportunity to do the voiceover for this, so at least that's good. But the thing with that is, like, it's August right now, and it's just like this complete vibe where you can, it's like the lo-fi girl studying in her room kind of thing, where you can just like imagine that sort of thing, where I've got my headphones in, I got my microphone set up, and I'm just saying things with my voice, hoping that it soothes people, because that's kind of the point of this series, I suppose. It's a way for me to ramble while people watch me do my thing with art, and you know, I hope that if you are watching this, that it is soothing for you. I recently got to watch Thor a few nights ago with friends, so I guess that's still on my mind, and that's why I'm messing that up. By the way, since I said I would, shout out to the Space Octopus and the Flying Wolf for being some of my first fans. You all are amazing. I've shown them some of my art before I've shown a lot of people my art, and, you know, like, posted it in the first place. And they are just so supportive, and I cannot thank them enough for that. Right, in terms of art, you may notice like some flickering or like sketch layers suddenly being visible and things like that, and references popping in. And with that, there is like some kind of, well, issues there. It's partially because I'm using a bunch of references, because I've gotten better at that. Those references are set on a private layer because in the case of like uploading for speed paints, I would not want to I wouldn't want to place them in YouTube videos, bruh. So you'll see some stuff like flickering between private and public, because I accidentally drew sketch layers on the same layers as private layers, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I got really good at using references. I also found some really cool brushes that are like free assets for legs and hands and eyes and stuff like that, so sometimes I'll use those for private layers and use them for references, and it's just so helpful, especially when you're doing 18 drawings in 1 month. I cannot emphasize that enough, that free assets are so helpful for doing drawings quickly. And in case you see various flashing, which I'll try to slow down, it's very sped up, but I also did some animations for these. In case you're wondering, I took a look at how long total all these drawings took, time-wise. It was 68 hours. So that's fun. That's like, oh my god, I'm trying to calculate how many days that is total. Let's see. 68 divided by 24. Let's see, 24... We have 48. It's more than 2 days. It's almost 3. That's crazy. Oh my god. But I am really glad to have gotten the chance to draw these different characters, because it really expanded my comfort zone. And I think it's honestly really important for artists to do things like this. And I'm not saying if you're an artist that you have to do these things. I'm just saying, at least for me, it's very important, because if it's something like Artfight, if it's something like October, I get to do something in a certain genre over and over and over again to the point where I perfect it. And before this, I had a few months where like I was kind of falling behind on art, and I forgot how I had done some things. So it was a bit meh when I started drawing again. This has really helped with that, I think. What has also really helped with that is that it's summer right now, so I have a bit more time, but also I'm planning to, you know, restructure my schedule in terms of like work, in terms of learning things, so that I do have time for art and music, so that I can make a career out of those sorts of things. By the way, since it appears on screen right now, shout out to Chris/Socks, the person whose character I'm drawing. We have a chat together, and they guaranteed that whoever attacked them would also be attacked back. If you don't know how Artfight works, again, you draw a character on like an opposite team or your own team if you want, and they can attack you back, and it's called revenge. So they promised they would do revenges for people who would attack them in that server. And I was just like, hell yeah, your character designs are hella cool, let me get in on this. And decided, hell yeah, let's do some drawing of these characters. And I did this twice, because the first time I was just like, okay, this is a really cool character design. I got to see all the steps for this character design, so it was, you know, an honor to be in on that. And I really like these colors for one thing, and these concepts that are put in here. Oh, this character's cool. It's like an 80s aesthetic almost. It's like hyper pop, it's neon, it's the sort of character that I don't do too often, honestly, because I have Melody, the pastel lady that I put in some of my speed paints and music sometimes, and I talk about her a lot if you know me. There's just something about this that's a bit different from that. It's like there's pastels and then there's neon, where it's just like you have all these cool colors, and if you can get them to work like this character design does, it's just like hell yeah, hell yeah, hell yeah. And I love doing the shading on this, because I usually use like sort of magenta, blue, pinkish shading for stuff. If the colors are warm enough, I usually, you know, stick towards magenta and yellow, whereas if it's a cool color scheme, I use magenta for light stuff and blue for the shading. I have this system where I will do clipping masks where I'll fill the entire layer and then erase stuff from it, so that it gives, you know, the illusion that where it isn't erased is the shadows, instead of the light is here and the shadows are here. It's negative space, basically. That concept. Here you'll see me do a bunch of animation for this character, and on to the next. Okay. This is another friend of mine, their character, and I adore this character a bunch. I am a sucker for enigmatic non-binary people, and this person falls into that category, and I just adore that. And this color scheme was very fun to work with too, because it's semi-monochromatic, and that's very neat. Silver. Silver is a very cool color, and it works so well with blue, and I am so glad, Jay, if you're watching this, that you incorporate these colors together into this design. Oh my god, and with gold too, with the gold of the hair. Oh my god, hang on, let me just... ooh. This is basically just my neurodivergent brain going, ooh, color is pretty. Oh, another art method I have, and a lot of artists use this one, I think, but basically they just fill an area inside the lines, if they're using line art, with a certain color, usually something that is already a part of the character's color scheme, and then they color drop in the rest of the colors, and, you know, make sure that all the edges line up with the colors and that there aren't any missing things. And then what I like to do for the line work is set it to color burn, and that makes for some really, really nice stuff. I've gotten the compliment before, which, you know, really flattering. It's really flattering every time, honestly, when I get compliments on my art these days. I, you know, have a relatively small following compared to some people, so it's just, whenever I get a compliment, it's just like, thank you so much. But I've gotten the compliment that my art is sort of like a storybook, whether that's like a children's storybook, like Goodnight Moon, or just a story in general, like it would be used for a story, and I just love the idea of that so much. So the way I do that, and I told a few of my friends this before as well, is setting my line work to color burn, and then once I make sure all the coloring and shading and stuff is done, I duplicate that layer, place that above the line art layer, and then clipping mask that and make sure that things are okay on that department so that, you know, the line work is still there, but it still has this soft appearance. So I'm trying to figure out how to explain this. Yeah, you fiddle around with the opacity, you Gaussian blur it if the colors are too, you know, blended together or smudgy, or like the lines don't quite line up, and it's just such a nice vibe in my opinion. You can also do this thing with things you want to stand out, because usually at least for my drawings, the coloring is much more light than the line work, which I usually set to like a dark blue or a dark red or things like that. So one thing you can do for things you want to stand out, such as eyes, is erase that layer in that place so that it stands out. And I think I do that with this drawing actually, and you might see that in a bit. In terms of cool brushes, some other stuff I use for this is like star brushes, luminance brushes. I found really cool ocean brushes. I should link a bunch of the brushes I found in the description of this. Note to self for Alfie later, do that. Fucking do that. And it's just, they've been so helpful during this whole process. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I really like stars and stuff and bubbles, and just creating an atmosphere within the drawing is something I've learned to do over the past month, I think. Or relearned. I kind of knew how to do it before, but this really helps with setting atmosphere and things like that. Sorry, I just burst out laughing because on the piece I got to, there was just suddenly like my ADHD is having the time of its life right now, let me tell you. I first learned that I had ADHD like a few years ago, I think. Well, I say a few, it's more than a few. It was like, I recently learned that a really traumatic event. I say recently, it was more than a year ago. Time is so weird to me, but on that same note, I, a few years ago, learned that an event that had really, you know, traumatized me and stuff like that had only happened about a year ago when I talked to a psychiatrist about medication and things like that. It was really, really weird, honestly, because, you know, in terms of psychiatry and getting medication and things like that, and, you know, trying to sort through, no, this medication does not work for me, no, this one does not either, neither does this one, can we do this one please, and that whole process. It's just like, one time I had a panic attack before a visit to the psychiatrist, and let me tell you, that was very interesting, because like, the psychiatrist was completely understanding about that, but like, my parents, you know, had been really concerned about me, so were kind of speaking for me in terms of stuff, and I had to like butt in terms of some stuff, like, no, that is not what I want, let me speak through the panic attack I'm having to tell what I actually want, which, you know, is kind of morbidly funny, I suppose. I have a dark sense of humor when it comes to these sorts of things, or maybe even because of these sorts of things, where it's just like, I've been through enough that some humor towards it has to be put in place in order to cope with it. Oh man, that's a morbid thought if I ever heard one. Let's get back to soothing stuff, alright? In one of the videos I did on this series, I talked about stuff like seashells and sea glass, and now we're getting into like trauma and stuff like that, and oversharing and things like that. In the editing process, I might cut out a bunch of the stuff, but at the same time, I might not, because I think creators and mental health is really important as a subject to get into, and I recognize that it's like, what's the term? It's not parasitic. I need to look this up actually, one sec. What do you call online relationship dependence? Okay, that's codependency. I think it's like parasitic social attachment or something like that, where it applies a lot to, you know, YouTubers and creators in general and things like that, where when people idolize someone, they put them on this pedestal for better or for worse, and mostly for worse, honestly. And they think they are above flaws, above a lot of stuff. And sometimes when that person brings up flaws, it's like devastating for that person because they've created such an empathetic link to that person. And kind of on the same lines, if that person doesn't share something about their life, it's also devastating for those sorts of people because they've gotten so used to that person sharing aspects of their life. I actually, in my senior year, I wrote a paper on this sort of thing about creators and burnout and mental health, and that was a big, huge part of it. You see all these social figures in online, in art history. It's not even a modern problem. You have figures like Van Gogh, who weren't necessarily, you know, not necessarily a parasocial aspect, but like, mental health needs to be more regarded as a topic. It needs to be more discussed. It needs to be more discussed in an open and healthy atmosphere. It needs to be less demonized. It needs to be less stigmatized. And I will argue for that point to the end of the earth. I have found and weaved together like friends and friend groups that are really kind when it comes to this sort of stuff. And, you know, we have our flaws when it comes to that sort of stuff in some of the groups that I'm in. And of course, some of those groups are like public, so like when it comes to those, I keep some stuff to myself, because no duh. I've, you know, learned through my years of being online that like, that's not a good idea. It's like, I had to kind of learn the hard way because I was both somewhat young and somewhat old when the internet first came out, let's put it that way. Where like, I was young enough to be naive and old enough to learn new tricks slowly, I guess. Because when I was younger, I was very sheltered from the internet when it came out. And that was kind of both for the better and for the worse. Cause, oh man, this is like really getting into those parasocial relationships now. But like, how to go into this? I think for most of these drawings I just did one character, but for a few of these I did two characters. It was mostly because in a lot of designs I was going after rather detailed stuff. Not on purpose, mind you, it's really just what ended up happening. And I guess, you know, stretching out of my comfort zone, like I said, is important, so it allowed me to do that. There was this one really detailed design which you'll see in a bit here, or I might edit this audio to that point, in which case you'll definitely see it at the same time. And there are a few pieces where I did put in more than one person or more than one entity. Like in one person I put two characters, and in one I put like a character and a canon character, because that character in particular was from or based on a series, and I was like, okay, what if they encountered a boss from that series? Because I saw in the character's profile that they had a sort of fear when it came to that boss, and I was just like, oh, I have characters like that too, let me just do something evil. I really like that juxtaposition where you like have various happy moments that you're experiencing or drawing and things like that, and then yeah, you have like these pastel designs and stuff, but then you have like these really frightening occurrences and things like that. It's just so fun to play with, absolutely. At the end of the month, I started doing more simple stuff because I, again, had done a really detailed character design, and so at that point I just got so tired, and I've been staying up to create these drawings as well, so my sleep schedule has been recovering since then, but like there's still some side effects to that, and partially because of that, I decided, alright, let's do some things that I don't have to put as many hours into, because that was exhausting. Like, no offense to the person who made this character, like, actually props to the person who made this character design, because like, whew, I cannot imagine just sitting down and, oh man, drawing this character just out of your head, or even from concept art. I made things detailed like that, but oh man, that's really impressive. I have to give kudos. Some other things I got to play with besides stars, and I don't think I mentioned this, but rain was actually another thing that I got to include sometimes, but in the detailed drawing, I got to include some snow and things like that. And some of the star brushes made for some nice snow, so that was nice. That they served double the purpose. It was, you know, good to have that sort of utility in a brush. I think it's really important when you're getting brushes that are going to take up storage space in your device, that you can make sure that they have enough utility and that you use them often enough to justify downloading them. And I think that was really the case with the star brushes. I might have to go through my brushes again and see, like, okay, maybe I don't use this one as much, maybe I shouldn't, maybe I should recategorize it, maybe I should not download it, things like that. And I don't think I can, well, at least at the moment I can't think of any brushes that are like that, but we'll see. I'll probably be drawing again in just a bit here, so it'll be a nice opportunity to go through all those brushes and just go, okay, these are the details I'm going to use, and these I will probably never use, and things like that. And I totally recommend that for any digital artists. Artists. That's an interesting word to say, especially really quickly. I actually tend to speak fairly quickly sometimes, so if some of this comes off as garbled, then by all means tune it out. This is more here for me to, you know, get some stuff out, and for you to relax, which, you know, sentiments and scribbles. This is the sentiment behind the scribbles, just to give everyone who's watching this a little time, well, 30 minutes in this case, about 35, you know, some time to relax and just listen and watch and enjoy themselves. Oddly, a thing that could be said about making all these drawings is that it made me better at drawing my own characters as well. Cause, you know, I'd like to think, a very distinct style. So drawing all these characters made me realize, you know, the details that I value in my style. Allowed me, I've been kind of saying this over and over again, but allowed me to kind of hone all those details that I have come to enjoy, that I have kind of emphasized in what I do. And so when I draw my own characters in the future, because I'll be honest, my own characters are like one of the main things I draw these days. I draw characters from media that I enjoy as well, and I have plans for, like, you know, vocal covers and more remixes and stuff like that, and that will be very exciting. I like to draw my own characters a lot. I'll probably do speed paints, you know, going into them. I know I did a speed paint, like, drawing the main 7 that I talk about all the time with those I'm close to. But the interesting thing about this, of course, and apologies if you can hear my cat purring into my mic. He has come over to snuggle. He is very fond of me, so sometimes I have to crop out meows and purrs from my recordings, because he'll be like meowing in the background, because he likes to bury under blankets, so I'll have to like come over and help him, and if I don't come over and help him in time, he just like starts meowing while he's burrowing under blankets. But yeah, apologies in advance if you can hear him doing that, and apologies in advance if you can hear me plucking hairs from the microphone, because he is a long hair. He's probably, I want to say shedding the last of his winter coat, but like, it's way into summer right now, so he's just like shedding for the hell of it, I guess. I have a lot of fan characters, so the interesting thing about those is like navigating around copyright, because I, like I said, have a lot of remixes planned. Some of them are like old remixes and songs I did I want to recover and recover from when I did them, because, you know, I didn't have as much skill then as I do now, and so I think it's kind of important that I go into these songs with the skills that I now have and, you know, renovate them. So you'll be seeing some of that in the future. I've been considering, well, I say I've been considering, I will in the future, when I have payments set up, offer music commissions. So if people want to pay to have a composition done for their character, or pay to have a remix of a certain song done, then I would gladly do those, because, like, I don't know, I could be paid like $5 or $3 to remix a song from a place or origin I really like. Back when I was first getting into remixing, I did like Kirby remixes. I did a Shovel Knight remix for a friend once, and I might want to go back to that because, you know, it was really old. There was a lot of limitations to GarageBand back then, so I didn't get to do as much as I do now. So that's pretty interesting, but I would, you know, maybe because I did it for a specific person, maybe I could do it for that person's birthday, because, you know, I think that would be a nice thing to do. But then again, I might, like, crop this out so it's, like, a surprise or something, I don't know. My friends have introduced me to a lot of video games in the past few years. I've been playing Stardew Valley lately, which has been pretty awesome. Someone I am good friends with these days gave me Animal Crossing New Leaf a few years ago, which I had played before that point, but I had foolishly sold it, as well as Nintendog, so I could get I think it was Fire Emblem Fates. Otherwise it was a Kirby game, which would have been a less foolish decision, I think. But if it was Fire Emblem Fates, that was a bad decision. Fire Emblem Fates was not worth selling those two games. But, you know, it was the decision I made when I was younger, and when I was younger, I was kind of foolish when it comes to, like, purchases of money. And I don't mean that in a way that, like, I bought a lot. I didn't. I actually bought too few things for myself. It was, like, the exact opposite. But because I bought too few things for myself, I didn't have as much experience with it as some other people. When I started growing up and, you know, making purchases for myself and making my own money and getting gifted money and doing jobs and getting money from that, some things I would save up for because, you know, I tried to be very tactical about that sort of thing. Like the Nintendo Switch is something I saved up for, and I got to play piano for a wedding to do that, and that was pretty cool, honestly. It was a neat experience in, like, commissions, I guess. A hired gig, I guess is what you'd call it. Since then, I've got to do some other sort of hired gigs. For one of the choir classes, I got to perform for a bunch of people from, like, other classes and stuff like that, and that was pretty neat. That entire class has been pretty neat, and if anyone from that class is watching this, know that that class has inspired a lot of confidence within me. I think I started trying to do voice acting before that point, actually, with, like, my amateur mic. I have a mic that I have been using for recordings now, because I didn't use that mic until I realized that you know, I was leaning way too far into it, and that's why I was picking up so much. The other problem with that is it would pick up too much, because sometimes I have air conditioning going on in the background, or I have people mowing outside, because goodness knows this is kind of a populated neighborhood, for better or for worse. It's like one of those neighborhoods with the golden retrievers and the kids running around screaming as if they've just been hurt badly. I'm trying not to say words that YouTube might demonetize me for. That's the thing too, is like I don't think I even have monetization up on my channel yet because I don't have enough subscribers for that. So, by the way, if you're watching this and you enjoy this, like and subscribe, maybe share with people, that would be great. Because, you know, I put a lot of work into the things I do. And, you know, some of these things I've been working on getting less perfectionistic about, but, you know, I do put a lot of work into those even when I'm not perfectionistic. So, like, when people share my work, it's really helpful, and I cannot emphasize that enough. I think with that we're almost wrapping up when it comes to these whole things. I'm gonna do a thing in editing where like I scroll through the drawings because I have them all saved on the computer that I do for video editing now. So you'll get to see those, and I'll try to slow some things down because the thing with speed paints is they go whoosh whoosh. But I hope you enjoyed this, and until next time, I am Owl-Moniker, and I hope to see you in the future. By the way, if there are any of the... let me rephrase. It's saying things with my voice helping. Sometimes I'll use them, and it's just so helpful. I'll try to slow it down. It's very sped up. You can do this being like a speed paint. What has also really helped with that is that I have, oh man, brain overload. But if the colors are, I thankfully have created, I have found, but like, how to go into this? For some nice snow, so that was nice, that they oddly enough, a thing that could be said about doing all these drawings is because, you know, I'd like to think a very distinct, and that will be very exciting, but, hell of it, I guess. I had a thought. Oh yeah, as much experience with it as some other people, so, we're recordings now because I record in the dead of night, I don't have, you know, I already went over this.